Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
There's an opportunity here if we're able to generate own source revenue and collectively think about the future.
A historic deal. A group of BC First Nations buys a stake in Enbridge's natural gas pipeline, a move they say will achieve economic reconciliation for dozens of Indigenous communities. Plus, a coroner's inquest into the overdose death of an 18-year-old UVic student is calling for action at numerous levels of government. And
with this amount of money, I'll be able to spend more time with my daughter, with my wife, with my family.
A Surrey man wins big, an $80 million Lotto Max jackpot, the largest win by an individual in Canadian history.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Janella Hamilton. Thanks for joining us. A group of 36 BC First Nations have signed a deal to buy a minority stake of Enbridge's Westcoast natural gas pipeline. As Mira Baines reports, the move appears to signal a shift in Indigenous participation in the energy sector.
A landmark deal for 36 First Nations communities in BC. The Stonlisic 8 Indigenous Alliance is buying a minority stake in Enbridge's natural gas pipeline system for $715 million.
You can't help but to feel good to finally be participating in with one of the largest corporations in the energy sector on an asset that's operating through our territories.
For 65 years, natural gas has been pumped through the province. Now, to buy that 12.5% stake, the Alliance needed a loan guarantee of $400 million from a federal program under the Canada Indigenous Loan Guarantee Corporation. Jimmy says the deal opens the door for more projects and revenue.
You've got an asset in the ground that's already operating. It's been there for 65 years. Are we going to oppose or change that and the energy that we're all using currently? We're not, but there's an opportunity here if we're able to generate own source revenue.
Although there has been a history of Indigenous opposition against pipelines, Enbridge says the deal helps advance reconciliation. BC's energy minister praised the deal.
It's similar to what's happened on wind projects in BC, which are 51% owned on the net by First Nations.
Crown Corporation BC Hydro inked a deal in January with the Saulteaux First Nations in BC's Peace River region to buy electricity generated by wind energy turbines. Still in BC, there are concerns that some projects will be given priority over others.
David Eby has said there wouldn't be a prioritized process unless it's First Nation owned. I think, quite frankly, that makes it very difficult for anybody to be able to have confidence to be able to move projects forward in British Columbia.
3 years ago, Enbridge sold a minority stake in 7 pipelines in Alberta to First Nations and Métis communities. This recent deal in BC is set to close by the end of June. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
A cooperative housing complex in Vancouver is speaking out as a deadline to pay $1 million tax approaches. As Chad Pawson reports, they say they are being unfairly subjected to BC's property transfer tax.
Helens Court in Kitsilano, one of more than 50 affordable cooperative housing complexes in Vancouver. Residents lease the land from the city and work together to build and maintain a lasting community.
It's affordable, it's stable. We're a village, and I think that's rare. So we all know each other, and it's self-governing. So we support each other, we take care of each other.
Since 1982, Helens Court CoOp has had a lease with the city. It's up for renewal, and with it comes a provincial tax bill worth $1 million. That's for a property transfer tax. It's because co-ops are a type of ownership, meaning the PTT applies. Residents here say it's unfair.
The city owns the buildings, the city owns the land, we own nothing. What kind of property is being transferred in the first place? And we're a not-for-profit co-op. Why would the province be making this kind of profit from not-for-profit housing? It makes no sense.
The city is currently working with many co-ops to renew long-term leases. It agrees the provincial property transfer tax applied to co-ops could erode their affordability. It's unwilling to cover the tax, but is supportive of lobbying the province to change the rules. Residents say it must.
Figure out that administrative fix. You know it's a mistake and that it's putting co-op housing in jeopardy. How hard can it be to prioritize this?
Finance Minister Brenda Bailey is the MLA for Helens Court and also the finance minister who could enable the exemption co-ops want. So far, though, she only says in a statement that the province's overall housing plan includes, quote, examining the issue of upcoming lease expirations. Residents here at Helens Court hope any change comes fast before the provincial legislature breaks after May 29th. The deadline for Helens Court to sign its new lease with the city is June 1st. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
A coroner's inquest into the overdose death of an 18-year-old UVic student has released its findings. Karen Larson joined BC Today host Michelle Elliott earlier to talk about the jury's recommendations.
One of the concerns raised was that it took 3.5 minutes from the start of the 911 call for the 911 call operator from BC Ambulance to establish the location of where McIntyre Starco and the other student had fallen unconscious. Now, they lived in a dorm called Sir Arthur Currie Student Residence, which is on the UVic campus. It's been there since 1967, but the 911 operator couldn't locate it on her map. As it turns out, it doesn't really have a civic address, and this is true of a lot of buildings on university campuses, that everyone on campus knows where they are, but they don't have an actual civic address. And the 911 operator actually testified in front of the coroner that on her map, all the buildings, all the resident buildings just look like gray boxes. And so that caused a delay in response for the ambulance getting there.
And Sydney's parents, as I mentioned, were very vocal in their criticism. There have been changes made at post-secondary institutions. What led to this coroner's inquest?
Well, those criticisms, many of them were directed at how campus security officers responded. They were called. They did attend the scene. They do have first aid training. They do carry naloxone. But because there was 2 students who were unconscious and turning blue, we heard testimony about that, and also having seizures, which can happen in drug overdoses, they didn't immediately give the Narcan or diagnose what the problem was. It also didn't help the third student didn't immediately tell that they had taken drugs. She said when she testified that she was worried she would get in trouble. You know, that information was divulged a little bit later. But overall, what we hear in the response is just this delay in actually, figuring out or responding. And so it took 12 minutes before Narcan was administered to the 2 students that had passed out, including McIntyre Starco. It was probably too late at that point for her. And then it took a total of 15 minutes before CPR was started. So one other issue we should mention is the ambulance did show up. It did take McIntyre Starco to the hospital, but when she got there, they didn't know who she was. She wasn't identified. The BC ambulance attendant did not know her name. The university didn't follow through on that. So she was in the emergency department at Royal Jubilee Hospital as an unidentified person. Her mother, Caroline McIntyre, is an emergency room physician here in the Vancouver area. And she testified on the first day, and it was just incredibly heartbreaking how her daughter was essentially dead in the emergency room at Royal Jubilee, and no one knew. The family wasn't informed because the hospital didn't know who this person was, and the university didn't follow through, even though it did put out a statement afterwards that it had in fact, informed the hospital who this person, that in fact was not true. And so there was a lot of discrepancies in information around this tragic incident.
A long-awaited public hearing begins for a group of proposed towers at the site of the former East Broadway Safeway. Here's how residents in the area are reacting.
The more housing we have in general, the more supply and the lower the price. So it's better for everyone. And even if it's, called luxury housing, it just creates supply and pushes the price down. So
it depends on how much they will price it, though, because sometimes they just build towers and then it's very unaffordable for most people.
After a year of controversy, Metro Vancouver will soon be receiving an external review of its governance. It comes after dozens of stories about the regional government's oversight, expenses, and cost overruns. Justin McElroy reports.
Metro Vancouver is a regional government with a strange mascot and has had quite a year.
It's certainly, from my perspective, being very challenging.
That is Burnaby Mayor and Metro Vancouver Chair Mike Hurley. He became chair a year ago after Delta Council removed its mayor as their Metro Vancouver appointee, in the middle of a series of stories about expenses and cost overruns that continued for months. That eventually forced Metro Vancouver into reviews of the massively over-budget North Shore sewage plant and a separate review of its own governance. Hurley doesn't argue that the stories were unfair, but he does think they missed the forest for the trees.
I think we certainly put a lot of materials out that weren't reported, or for whatever reason. I don't think too many people understand what Metro Vancouver actually does.
Now, politicians everywhere would like it if the media only focused on the good stuff. And it's true that headlines like basic regional water services are working A-OK aren't going to set the world on fire. But explaining how Metro Vancouver works helps explain why this problem emerged in the first place. You see, Metro Vancouver is a patchwork of 21 municipalities, from Vancouver with 700,000 people to Little Belcarroll with just 700. About 80% of its budget goes towards regional water and waste utility services, but it also does a few other things around parks, housing, and air quality. Now, that mix of responsibilities isn't particularly unique, but what is unique about Metro Vancouver is how politicians give oversight, or rather, how many. In most big urban areas in Canada, those services are overseen by the same mayor and council that oversees other local services. While there are some exceptions, like Montreal or the Mississauga-Brampton area of Peel in Ontario, they tend to be of moderate size. British Columbia does have 26 other regional districts that provide similar services, but because they oversee a more rural and suburban area as well, there are less separate mayors around the table. Metro Vancouver is the only regional political body with this number of politicians in the room in the entire country, mostly for utility services that aren't particularly political. Only 2 of those 41 directors are paid to treat Metro Vancouver like their full-time job. It means that there aren't a lot of people around to give constant oversight, but a lot of people around when things start to go wrong to point fingers.
Compare it to, say, a municipality or a city council, I think there would be a lot more, there'd be way more responsiveness, more timely responsiveness. And I think partly that is because 41 people versus, say, 7. I think it's easier to touch base with the various elected officials, have a plan, and then move forward.
And this matters because that governance review of Metro Vancouver is about to be made public, likely in the next couple weeks. And a number of directors think it will look at bigger questions, like if every municipality needs to be represented, or even if some municipalities should merge.
I don't know how to change the governing model so that everybody still has a say, because you look at right now, we allow a say from a mayor, from Mayor of Vancouver or Mayor of Surrey, but we also allow a say from a Mayor of Anmore or a Mayor of Port Moody.
Now, nobody knows for sure what the actual report will say, and as Wes points out, Metro Vancouver is ultimately a creature of the province.
Who Metro Vancouver is and what it should be responsible for and what its governance should look like. At the end of the day, it's going to be the provincial government having to make a change if there's going to be a change.
It would be a giant domino effect if complaints about travel led to the elimination of entire municipalities. But Metro Vancouver has always been unique, and its next chapter might be even more so. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
It's BC's largest lottery jackpot ever and the largest single win in Canada. A Surrey resident has won $80 million.
So good. So I know the struggle for every Canadian around. So with this amount of money, I'll be able to spend more time with my daughter, with my wife, with my family. Like, it's awesome, man. Like, I don't know. Thank you. Just thank you. I'm just feeling blessed right now.
35-year-old Justin Semporius says he plans to use some of the money to build his dream home and make sure his mom never has to work again. After the break, why some researchers worry herring could face challenges from new development and urbanization. We'll take you out on the water next.
I think it's important to give a human face to the stories that we hear every day, the people that they affect. And I think talking to those people is what really gives us the true sense of the impact of the stories that we're hearing.
In the waters of Howe Sound, a team of volunteers and scientists is on the lookout for Pacific herring. For such a small fish, it plays a huge role in the coastal ecosystems. But as Camille Vernet reports, it's a species facing growing pressure from urbanization and industrial development.
The waters of Howe Sound are teeming with marine life. This team is on the lookout for herring, a small but mighty fish. Matthew Van Oedstam and Maddie Moore take to the waters every week, diving to discover what's happening underwater.
We're surveying at a minimum once a week, but we try to get out twice a week from kind of late January all the way to the end of April.
Squamish First Nation and the Marine Stewardship Initiative want to know how the fish are doing. So they're here to spot herring eggs.
I mean, they bring like an incredible pulse of nutrients. From the moment they drop their eggs, they're feeding seabirds, to the salmon that feed on herring kind of throughout their life cycle, and then all the other species that kind of rely on the salmon, like our resident killer whales, sea lions, seals.
Herring eggs are spotted and collected for research. Since there's no commercial herring fishery here, DFO doesn't monitor this area.
The purpose of collecting that data is so that we can share it with whether it be developers, decision makers, policy makers, and they can make informed decisions.
The Pacific herring has had some difficult years. Stocks faced near collapse in the 1960s. Overfishing led to a fishing ban. Since then, stocks have fluctuated. For coastal First Nations, the loss of reliable herring has been devastating.
Our people used to say when there's nothing else for them to have in the ocean, there's still herring for them to survive on. But now it's not there anymore. So it really bodes a poor future for our fish if there's no herring. How will all those species in our ocean survive?
On some areas of Vancouver Island, the fish have returned in so many numbers that the sperm or milt is changing the color of the water. But in other areas, that dramatic return hasn't happened. In November 2024, 6 First Nation chiefs called for a moratorium.
It was opened up for the food and bait fishery, and they practically cleaned it out again, without letting them replenish.
In Howe Sound, urbanization and a planned LNG plant has also raised new concerns.
It's kind of like a new wave of industry that's threatening that like returning health to the sound. And not really if, but when something happens, how will that affect like the humans and the natural world in the sound?
Community support for the fish is growing in Squamish. Elika Cairns now coordinates 80 volunteers. This is twice as many as last year.
It is a huge help, and I think it represents a growing interest in herring and the program.
At low tide, volunteers scan the beach for eggs.
It's like finding treasure. It's just been a really cool way to feel like my fingers on the pulse of the ocean in Squamish.
And protecting herring means protecting an entire ecosystem.
Oh, hey, it's a black bear. It's a mom and cub black. We're reminded right now of the role that herring play even for these bears as they come out of hibernation. And this is so special. We've never gotten to see black bears fresh out of hibernation feeding on herring spawn.
A powerful reminder why communities are rallying for this little fish with a big role. Camille Vernet, CBC News, Squamish.
Some wet weather at White Rock Pier this afternoon. Darius will have your full BC-wide forecast coming up.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
CBC celebrates Asian Heritage Month through the language of movement, where every step tells a story. Throughout the month of May, we're shining a spotlight on Asian dance groups, showcasing the dynamic blend of classical, folk, and contemporary dance forms. These talented dance groups share their cultural heritage through stories and traditions, knowledge, and technique. Read and watch their stories at cbc.ca/bc.
Darius Madavi joins us now with a look at our weather. And Darius, it was a bit cooler and wetter today.
That's right, and honestly good news in terms of both the fire danger and the drought situation. You can see still high fire danger up in the northeast where we haven't had very much precipitation. And we also got our first drought update today. I'm not going to show the map for the sake of time, but level 3 and 4 drought up in the northeast, level 3 for Vancouver Island and 2 here on the lower mainland and Sunshine Coast. So any rain we can get is good news. The rest of the province, and then Haida-Gwaii, level 1 drought, we don't really have data for yet. So expect that to come out in the next couple weeks as the province gets ready to release more of it. In the meantime, like you said, Janelle, we're seeing some precipitation coming down the south coast through southwestern BC. A couple showers popping up in the central interior. Chance of thunderstorms tonight and tomorrow in parts of the central and southern interior, as well as in the southeast, which sometimes people count as central interior, southern interior, sometimes not. So mentioning it too. We can see that rain coming down, blowing through southwestern BC pretty much right through the weekend. Showers continue to pop up at times. Although Sunday looks like the clearest day, should be a little bit of sunshine there. If we zoom out to the rest of the province, you can see some of that precipitation making it into the interior as well. Really just as a few very scattered showers for the most part, especially for the southern interior, like the Okanagan, tonight and through into the morning tomorrow. I will also mention another wave of precipitation arrives, as we can see here, Sunday night into Monday. We see more of that rain coming in. Conditions across, temperatures first. Temperatures honestly don't really change too much. Temperatures will start to recover in the southern interior after a bit of a drop that we saw either today or tomorrow, depending on where you are. Conditions across the province tomorrow, looks like we got, again, a few thunderstorms in places, but for the most part, we're looking at some pretty scattered showers, only really consistent rainfall here in southwestern BC. Some rain continues in at Vancouver. And really quickly, before we go, Janella, I want to say happy birthday to my little sister. She's turning 16 today. Happy birthday, Anahita.
Happy birthday to you. Thanks so much, Darius.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us on CBC Vancouver News. You can watch this newscast on our free CBC Gem app, as well as on our YouTube and, of course, on our website at cbc.ca/bc. Hope you have a great night.